Well, welcome, guys. We've got Eli and Kaitlyn, some Gen Zers, some younger people on the podcast, which I've really been wanting to do for a long time because this is going to, I guess, this gene technology bill, and it's the whole reason we're having this conversation is it's going to affect generations beyond your generation, my generation, and probably our kids and beyond that. So it's really important that the public have a lot more information on this subject. So I think a lot of people are quite information poor. I look forward to kind of hearing your perspectives and kind of where you guys are coming from as a more younger voice. Yeah, but could maybe just quickly, as a quick intro for each of you, just your backgrounds and like how you got involved in this issue in the first place. If I'll start with you, Kaitlyn, go for it.
Okay, well, I've worked as an organic market gardener for about 2 years, and so that's when I kind of understood like why soil health is so important and kind of why we don't need GE. But when I was in year 13, I was actually part of the Bayer Youth Ag Summit, and that was really interesting because I didn't know anything about GE then, and they were teaching us about like, oh, golden rice is like so good and all this stuff, and I believed it. Like, it was so believable. And then I showed Jenny Lux, who I was working for in the organic space, and she's like, this isn't like correct. And so she introduced me to like all of the Organics New Zealand people, and they kind of mentored me through of all the false stuff because you can easily be swept away and believe all the things they're telling you. So anyway, that's how I kind of got into GE, and I've just continued working in the organic space since then.
Could you say about your little hustle as well, your business?
Yes, so in the past few years, I have been working in a business called Kai Compost. So I do a lot in like the home compost education space, compost workshops, and all those kind of things.
Amazing. And you, Eli?
I got into the food and fibre space just in the think tanks. I've been a part of Future Farmers New Zealand since the beginning. So that's a group of young people come together, decided we need to come up with policy solutions because a lot of people in government don't have the spare time to, talk with farmers and soil scientists and bring all the brains in the food and fibre sector together to talk about what are policies that aren't going to hurt farmers economically and hurt their bank accounts, while also, not creating policies that are going to trip us up in the long term.
So how do you guys feel about this bill? You're obviously aware of it. That's why you're here. But how does it make you guys feel?
I guess it kind of makes me feel frustrated because and angry because the government's just putting out all this false propaganda. And it's like, once you know the truth, it's like you just see through it all. And yeah, it just makes me angry. It's like, why would you tell the people the false side of GE? I mean, obviously I know why, profit and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it makes me angry.
I'm angry with you. I also feel like a sense of urgency as well. And because of the time frames, and it's like it's been rushed through at Christmas whilst everyone's on holiday. The public don't know about it. There's no public discourse. Not a fair public discourse anyway.
Yeah, and they're not talking with the public about it either. As you said, they're just rushing through and they're more or less hiding it from the public as well, which is scary.
Yeah, and you, Eli?
Yeah, I've been annoyed that there's been no real genuine conversation or debate hosted by government or any institution really. The fact that Luxon's been saying that farmers are supporting of this technology, while I know for a fact, with my experience at being at field days with farm owners, talking with these guys, most of them don't actually know what GE is or what it's capable of, and most of them who do know what it is are against it. The fact that Luxon will say that, he's in support of farmers and that this will bring a support to farmers in the future with handling droughts and environmental changes due to climate change. I'm really not sure if we can actually see this as a solution, and I think it's actually going to create far more problems, and looking at technology as a solution, probably more of a band-aid over an actual fixating on what a solution to the causation is.
Yeah, and that whole relationship with soil health, which you guys know quite well, just terrifies me. And the fact that overseas you've got largely 4 main commodity crops, but that's all that's really to show for it. And they're pesticide-resistant varieties. I just think that's a dangerous way to go, and poisoning soils in the process. Actually, it doesn't seem the right way, but...
No, and there's been no studies on the effect of GMO plants on the soil microbiology community either. And they're like the powerhouse of the soil to create a healthy plant, so...
Yeah, it's there's a lot of intellectual arrogance and disingenuity, disingenuousness, with the studies that have come out and things that are called studies, like
studies.
Yeah.
So, for instance, there was a TVNZ thing. I think it was One News. They put out the side. There was a farmer talking about their perspective on GE. There was the pro GE side of it with Alan something. And then there was Jack Hyman, who was the academic talking against GE and why it shouldn't. And, Alan was one of the writers for what was called the paper that came up when TVNZ was showing that, according to scientists, the GE crop isn't going to be able to harm the environment. And they had this letter to the editor, which they purported as a study, which wasn't actually a study, because if you look at it, at the paper that they call a paper, there's no data behind it to back up the claim.
Because it's just a letter to the editor.
Yeah, it's just a letter to the editor.
Yeah. And they removed the authors on the TV part as well. Yeah.
So Alan
wasn't author.
Alan wasn't author. So there was one guy saying that he could claim something when there was no data to back him up. And the study that the TVNZ brought up was also his article to say that, which had no scientific backing at all.
I'm just going to shut that door quickly. Oh, the Kushner Norman one? The Kushner Norman one? Was it now? It was like a long one, right?
It was like 6 minutes. It was put out there for the public, like specific context of New Zealand, like what it meant for New Zealand.
I thought that was, I think I know. I'm thinking of the same one, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
It was only like 6 minutes, like it's pretty short.
And do you feel like it was fairly covered on both sides of that?
No way.
It's not. And it's the same for the science, there's a lot of bought and paid for science that a lot of people like to refer to. Say, oh, look at all these studies. Look, we've got all of these studies. But you look at who funds them studies. Yeah. How do we get it, guys? It's the crazy thing, because New Zealand's just so uniquely positioned. We've got the foresight of like seeing how it's already played out overseas. It's just throw yourself in the fire with it. It's just mental.
Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my own kind of theory on why they would want to come here and bring a completely liberalized view on genetic regulations. Because for those that know about GE and have been paying attention to politics, RFK Jr., who was campaigning against GE and GMO technology, is trying to increase the regulations and take off what is currently on the market, because legally speaking, it seems like a lot of them are on the market illegally anyway. And I mean, if you want to go to somewhere where you're going to have the least amount of damage possible, you'd put it onto an island that's isolated by thousands of miles of water. Because if you try to experiment with this stuff and liberalize the regulations with this technology, it's going to be far more expensive for you if it spreads across a continent of countries rather than just a population and economy the size of Denver.
That's a really important point, actually. I hadn't really thought of that, because we've got a moat around us, right?
So whatever harm happens in the environment here, it's going to be an isolated incident. If it was in India or in Germany or in somewhere in the continental US and it spreads, there's going to be continental damage. But if it's here, well, whatever damage happens, they're going to be liable for minimal amounts, really.
Which they probably won't be liable for anyway.
Yeah, well, yes, they've removed all the liability and the traceability and everything in it. Yeah, crazy stuff. And New Zealand's like an agricultural exporter. That's kind of what we're known for. And as a natural food producer, we benefit off that GE-free status, whether we are truly clean and green. There's that whole debate that, there's a lot of damage to waterways and all that stuff. Sure, that's a separate thing, but we still benefit from that. So to me, I mean, there's obviously many angles with this. There's an environmental angle, there's an economic angle, and there's the health angle as well. But for New Zealand's economy to do that, it's exposing ourselves quite a large way. In my opinion, it's economic sabotage.
Yeah. The long-term effects of the economics of this bill is probably going to be disastrous, let alone the environmental effects. But as far as I can tell, with the amount of lawfare that could be taken against farmers, if a specific gene of someone's genetically owned utility patent spreads to another farm, well, then that farmer is going to have to be probably putting a part of their profit and whatever they sell to someone else towards whatever corporation owns the IP of that gene. So in the long term, if the genes spread across their farms and they can't control it because they aren't able to recognize at the certain growth stage in whatever they're planting, if they can't recognize it, and if they at final completion just ship it somewhere and it's being sold, then a part of that profit's going to go to a corporation. And so over time, if you extrapolate that and it spreads more and more, it starts to become and look like a corporate takeover.
I don't know. This is probably like an ethical one, but I don't know how I feel about like companies owning nature. I don't know. There's just something wrong about it that feels to me. I'm not like anti-business, and I'm not anti-GE fully either. I think like medical applications for insulin and things like that is actually like in contained facilities. But when you start getting into agriculture and food systems, that's when it gets a little bit iffy.
Well,
Anyway.
also taking the power out of the farmers' hands as well. They're more dependent on the ag chemical companies or the agri seed companies, big seeds, and therefore it generally creates more debt as well. Whereas, like if they save their own seeds every year, that creates the same climate resiliency as GE as claim. So I guess that's also why it's unfair and scary that big business owns the seeds, because it makes farmers less resilient.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's really going to help farmers economically is less input. And if you have to buy every single one of your seeds every year instead of being able to harvest the seeds that you already have and spread it in, that's going to increase the input cost of.
So look, amongst your groups and like future farmers and stuff like that, like what's the kind of general consensus? Are people a bit concerned? Is there kind of a lack of awareness? Like what's the general sense?
So in future farmers, there is no consensus.
Okay.
The group, I wouldn't say, is extremely divided. I'd say that there's a lot of discussion that has happened, and there are people that are looking at the benefits of GE from a perspective of how can we eradicate possums? How can we increase pine growth or toughness? How can we increase the ability for yielding different types of crops, economic gains? And then there is counterpoints, but some of those counterpoints are drowned out by the more academic type of people in the group. I would say that not enough farmers have had their voices heard in this discussion, because a lot of farmers rely on basically media and the news in video form for their information around GE crops, because they don't have the time to research. There's a lot of admin, there's a lot of hard work. I mean, these guys during the summer can work 24, 36-hour shifts easily, and there's just not enough time on their hands to listen to any audiobooks or podcasts on the subject matters at all.
I want to ask you, because you changed your diet thanks to Kaitlyn, did you? And how was that experience been when you went fully organic?
Oh man, I was sick for every year of my life during school for, I'd say, at least 4 to 5 weeks out of the year. And after I switched to an organic diet, I was not sick at all for like the first year and a half on the diet. It wasn't until I got fed a bunch of stuff that was basically canned food that I started to become sick again.
I noticed the same thing. Like if I deviate off the path too far, or I have like a bit of fast food, I'm on the road, or I'm not getting the right nutrition. Yeah, my immune system starts dropping off quite quickly. Okay, and I will avoid glyphosate until the end of my days. I don't want that stuff in my system, because as you guys know, you're smart and you know about the relationship with food and where it comes from. But most people don't.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. Like if I'm in the supermarket or just talking to people, I feel like, because I'm like in this circle, people are just so conscious of this. It's just so weird to see people that aren't conscious of it. I'm like, isn't it just like so obvious? But then I have to remind myself, like I used to be like that. Like I used to shop, I don't know, at like Pick and Save or whatever, and bought the conventional food and didn't have like, I guess, a conscious understanding of how that related to like fresh water or like air quality or soil quality. I just thought healthy food is just healthy food, but it's not.
No. What's the thing that I guess in all of your learnings, what would be your main sort of takeaways with GE? What was the thing that kind of like, I'm not sure about that?
So from my perspective, having learned a bit more about it since I was in support of the GE bill, was that the genetically engineered sciences has their data based with a lot of fraud, and a lot of the hidden side effects in their studies aren't included in their papers until the very bottom of the footnotes. So even inclusion of the death of mice or the death of animals that are consuming these things to see if there are any side effects of animals is not mentioned even in the data until you get to the footnotes of studies. So there's a lot of shifty stuff that goes on in it. And so I've also learned that even in between the data and the executive summary, the executive summary doesn't even match the data of a lot of these studies. So you have to actually look at the data in the studies rather than just rely on the headline, the abstraction, or the executive summary.
And I guess most people are probably not going to go to that extent, right? But you're obviously so health conscious that you have to. And you, Kaitlyn, is anything that, you're like, I don't like this, don't like the sound of this?
Well, for me, I suppose that it's like GE is framed as a solution to climate, extreme weather events, resiliency.
Yeah.
But already that solution lies in the soil or like heritage seeds and seeds that we already just save every year. And so that's also why I'm just kind of angry at the government because there's already a cheaper solution that's been tested and proven and has multifaceted benefits for our ecosystems and human health. It's like, why can't we just go down that route of soil health and soil biology rather than GE? But I mean, obviously they don't go down there because of money.
There's no patents in that, Kaitlyn, come on. So, were you kind of initially, when you first got onto the subject of it, like were you generally quite supportive for some of those reasons, right?
I was neutral on it, and I saw economic benefit to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was more on the side of, well, if the science is kind of coming towards the age where AI is just able to look and predict a lot of what these things are going to do and do it precisely, because, GE is precise, which, I mean, GE can only be deemed as precise in cases where its effects are limited to those that are intended and predicted. So whatever genetic experiment happens where something isn't intended or predicted, it's not going to be part of that definition of GE as precise.
And is there any scenario where you would support it, like in agriculture? No?
I mean, with the GE bill, I think there's some common sense stuff in it. I'm not completely against everything that's in the bill because a lot of the technology is diagnostic tools. So companies like Zespri would use that diagnostic tooling to find out, does this seed have something that can have like red or blue DNA things in it to make it, of a certain color. But I mean, at the moment, their process is they have to plant the seed, wait 2 years for it to fruit something, and then they can look at the fruit. But if they just were able to have some of the diagnostic tools, they could look at the DNA and see, okay, is there these different points in the DNA sequence where we can see if these effects are going to be in the seed?
Marker-assisted breeding, I think that's kind of what that is, isn't it? I think I might be wrong.
So diagnostic rather than actually using the GMOs in the field.
Correct. Yeah. So looking what's in the DNA and saying, we like those traits, they're desirable, let's use that plant with that plant, but not actually modifying the genome.
Producing GMOs. It's not producing.
No, it's natural selection of natural breeding, but you're just being more selective over which ones you breed because you can see what's in them. And I can support, actually. I think that's a good thing. And I can support the medical applications, of course.
The thing is, we have to send a lot of our soil samples. We know some soil scientists here, and they have to send soil samples over to California because it's cheaper than doing it here. And that's just because of regulations and stuff. And it takes a lot less time as well. So whatever saves time and money in terms of and preventing it from going overseas, wherever the IP might be picked up by a company in California, for instance, I think that's common sense. I think that's good market competition promotion.
What else you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to get off your chest?
I feel like the nutrient density side of things, because like some GMOs, like golden rice, for example, is to increase a certain nutrient. But when you have healthy plants and healthy soil, that is actually the true nutrient density. And so I feel like GMOs isn't going to help in the health side of things. Like, for example, I've been experiencing chronic fatigue for the past few years. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, but my actual root cause is just really low zinc and iron saturation. And so I feel like if we, instead of using GMOs in the field and we look at true healthy soil and healthy plants, lots of people, how do I phrase it? There'll be a lot less people getting diagnosed with illnesses because their actual health will be better and optimal.
Yeah, there is a movement overseas and here in the country. Well, it's small. It's very small. It's just starting out in the last couple of years, really. But there is a movement that is recognizing as farmers that if you look after the soil health, you usually look after the plant health and increase productivity in it anyway.
Well, that was kind of my understanding, and I'm not an expert on this topic by any degree, but I probably have an above average understanding as much as you guys. But what I'm able to understand is, particularly with glyphosate, that when that is in the soil, it locks up a lot of those nutrients that are no longer bioavailable for the plant. On that nutrient density piece, what do you know? Can you tell me more about that? What do you mean? So you're just talking about if the soil was more healthy, the plants are going to be more higher in nutrition. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I can't remember. I was trying to remember in the past few hours the specific, like, or I don't know if it's like chemical that plants produce when they're actively working hard to get nutrients from the soil. For example, if you just feed your plants a whole lot of chemicals, it's like McDonald's for the plant. Like they don't have to work hard at all to get the nutrients, therefore they're less nutritious. Whereas if it's the plant, it has a lot less chemicals applied to it. They're working with the soil biology and they're exchanging exudate, carbon, and the microbes are feeding the plants. The nutrients they need, they're locked up in places in the soil that they can't access. So that's why, yeah, healthy soil is a lot more important rather than just using GMO, which is just a band-aid solution.
Yes. It's quite, I can see why, especially young people, get caught up on the whole GE to save climate change. It's quite a emoting topic. And I think that is being used to push a lot of this stuff. That
It's a scapegoat.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
And that's scary. Like, as we wanted to mention earlier, like when I was studying environmental science at UC, in the second course of environmental science, they taught us that GE was good and all like this technology and chemicals was the way forward for agriculture in New Zealand. And they're like, your jobs is going to be in technology and GE and New Zealand as consultants. And they really dissed organics. But if you looked at the study of why they were saying organics isn't like viable, is because in the first few years, if you're converting like a conventional farm to an organic farm, the soil ecosystem isn't working. So therefore you're going to have least profit. But over the next few years, as your biological systems regenerate, then you start to increase in profit. As in an organic farm, the lecturer didn't say this. So lots of people in my course at uni are pro-GE, but they don't understand why.
Your lecturer said that?
Yes.
Interesting.
And I've been really mad ever since. So I really should talk to them about this issue.
Teaching the next generation.
Yeah, and like I talked to my classmates, and they had just believed the lecturer, and I was like, no, it's all false. So yeah, it's scary what they're teaching us because uni students do just believe what they're being told, mostly.
What was the moment for you then when you were like, hang on a minute, what made you doubt it?
Well, I already knew all the stuff before I went to uni.
Oh, okay.
I already knew about organics and GE before going to uni, so I was already aware. But lots of uni students aren't aware because they haven't worked like on an organic market garden. You know, they just worked in like a retail shop or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, a particular annoyance that I've had over the last wee while is the fact that if farmers are in support of the GE bill because media is putting it in a good light, and Luxon's in support of it because he's saying it will support farmers, but then farmers don't have the time to research it independently, and they have to rely on media for it because that's the short form of information where they actually have the ability to have, you know, at dinner time, they can watch something if they want. It's like the propaganda is being advertised. The farmers are listening to that propaganda because they have no other choice, really. Luxon's saying he's in support of farmers because of this. And then when the GE bill goes through and all the genetic engineering comes through, and once the utility patents come through, which most farmers probably would never have even heard of, with the extent of lawfare that's going on in America, it's like once you realize, hey, all the lawfare cost alone is going to probably bankrupt our entire farming economy because our farmers just won't have the bank accounts big enough to support themselves against the lawfare. It's like, wow, you know, it's just, it prevents me from being able to articulate it properly just because it just boils my blood.
Yeah, me and you both. I'm curious to pick both your brains about like the kind of ethical and cultural considerations with this, particularly for Māori, obviously, with Kaitiaki and being stewards of the environment and whakapapa. Any thoughts on that one?
So from a religious perspective, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, it's like this is going to be the thing, especially if food isn't going to be labelled, whether it's GE or organic, you're not going to be able to choose whether you want something made by man or by God. And the thing is, that's quite an important thing if you want to keep on, like if you're an Amish person or in Gloria Vale, they'll be disconnected from their religious kind of convictions or capability of being able to follow their religious convictions by force. I mean, Gloria Vale might not be the best example, but the Amish, or whether you're just religious and you want to stick with food made by your God, it's going to be impossible within about 7 years because the spread is going to happen. Even those in Future Farmers that are optimistic about GE say, look, none of the spread or the things that we worry about will probably happen for like 4 years. But the thing is, it matters that it's gone through and that time will bring about those events. And I mean, from a Māori cultural perspective, you can't, like you were saying earlier, the idea of ownership over nature is kind of impossible. It's like the language that we use with the difference between the words belong or authority over mana whenua, right? We don't own the nature. It doesn't belong to us. We have authority over Kaitiaki. Having authority over mana whenua means you are the Kaitiaki of the land, meaning that you are the caretaker of the land, and that it is your responsibility to care for it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you own it. It doesn't belong to you. The idea that, if on Māori land the GMO spreads over there, I mean, I don't know what the legislative kind of battles are going to look like there, because Māori land is a complete different territory of legal battle and legal fights. So I'd be interested to see, what happens if there's a Māori-owned farm on Māori land and GMO spreads over there. I haven't heard anyone discuss that topic.
You're kind of referring to like the genealogy of like our native DNA, right? And as you say, we know this is an irreversible experiment. Once GMOs are released, it will contaminate everything eventually. It permeates across ecosystems. I think I'd like to think that if most Māori or iwi groups, they would be quite shocked to know that. But I'm wondering where those voices are, though. I'm really looking for them.
Yeah. I mean, even from within Ngāi I know that there are people that want the GE bill to go through, because there's a perspective of we will be able to make money. We can generate IP on some of our native stuff, whether it be, I mean, it's mostly from the corporate perspective, but it's not really from the cultural perspective, And the perspective from Māoridom that I've heard so far, a lot of people are against it, even if they don't fully understand the technology. The ones that have done even a little amount of research into it are against it, because it kind of extrapolates the idea that you can have IP on genes and nature and things that you eat, which is just, it goes against the fundamentals of Māori philosophy.
Yeah, we need to see more of those voices come out, I think.
Yeah. It'll be hard to find them.
You think?
Yeah.
Why so?
Well, I think it's because within Māoridom, we can be quite quiet and kept to ourselves in our own communities. And so kind of bringing ourselves out into other communities to talk about this kind of stuff isn't always happening, especially on the frontier of what's happening. There is a lot of people that will say, oh, we hear Māori complain about things all the time, but that's mostly just a tiny minority of voices that are given a microphone. It's not, the average Māori that lives on the park.
I'm mindful of time, but what else, guys? What else have we got in the locker today? You've got plenty written down there. What have you got? What do you want to get off your chest?
I brought some quotes here today. So, well, first off, in New Zealand, being an isolated island, we should be taking the precautionary principle to this, rather than taking the perspective of a techno-optimist, really. We shouldn't be looking at technology as the be-all, end-all to all of our problems being solutions. So I brought some quotes, which are a little bit out of date. Well, some people might consider them out of date, but these are built on principles that no matter how far into the future where we get with GMO technology, they're still relevant today.
Go for it, man.
So the Royal Society of Canada issued an extensive report declaring that A, it is scientifically unjustifiable to presume that GE foods are safe, and that B, the default presumption for every GE food should be that the genetic alteration has induced unintended and potentially harmful side effects. Another one from the British Medical Journal report published stating that more research is needed to show that genetically modified food crops and ingredients are safe for people and the environment, and that they offer real benefits over traditionally grown foods. And I don't think that there are any studies that actually show that that's true, that there's anything that is proven safe in the environment and that is safe to consume. I haven't seen them. If there is stuff out there that says that, I'd like to look at the data rather than just the abstract or the executive summary, because I don't trust them.
Yeah. That's the one thing I'm trying to figure out is, separating the glyphosate from the GMO, because I think most people, they go, oh, it's the glyphosate that's making it. It's not the GMO. But yeah, I'm still yet to answer that, whether it's the DNA of the genetically modified organism is unstable in some way, or it's carrying toxins, and there's a Seralini study, I don't know if you've seen that one, that was retracted and then republished later, but where he separated into control groups, GMO corn, then glyphosate, and then just a normal diet. And on both of the rats control groups that had glyphosate and GMO, they both developed rapid onset of tumors.
Yeah, that's common across a lot of the studies that you'll find. I think, even if they are hidden in the data and you can't find it till the footnotes, the fact is, there's plenty of studies where they created genetically modified pigs to increase the growth speed of the pigs so that they can be cut up into bacon faster. And what happened with some of the genetically modified pigs when they were born is that they found that they didn't have a butthole. Their nipples were gone. Parts of their organs had been shifted into places which didn't make any sense. Eyes or mouth wouldn't exist. Teeth malfunctioned in different ways. Or with mice, when they were consumed, the GE contained, there was a GMO genetically modified pea that had been injected with proteins from beans, and with some beans, if you eat them raw, there's a toxin in it which will make you sick. If you cook it, it kills the toxin. With the peas, when they were genetically modified, the protein carried over that effect into the mice, and they started to get inflamed feet. Their organs got a bit out of whack, and their immune systems became more just activated as if it was being attacked. And there's also, have you heard of the epidemic that was hidden in the late 80s?
No, tell me.
So this is probably one of the biggest things. When GMOs first came out, there was what was it? Let me just look at it real quick.
The thing I wonder is, if it's doing that to animals, what on earth is it doing to humans that eat it?
Yeah. There's a good chapter in the book called Disappearing a Disaster, headed How the Facts About a Deadly Pandemic Caused by GE Foods Have Been Consistently Clouded. And it's a great, I'll just read out a page from one of these.
I can't wait to read it.
So there's a drug called L-tryptophan that came out. It was supposed to help you get to sleep faster, basically. The chief of the Division of Rheumatology at the Graduate Hospital in Philadelphia, who treated several afflicted individuals, described it as the severest he had seen in his entire practice. The cells that fought infection and also controlled mechanisms associated with allergies were being counted at levels of between 1,000 to even 4,000. So that's your level of blood cells per microliter of blood. The normal white blood cell count is between 100 to 200. If you get an allergic reaction, it's about 400, and a severe reaction can get between 800 to 1,200. 1,200 is at the point where you look like that guy from The Big Bang Theory when he had a peanut allergy. He had like the puffed up face. That's about 1,200. These guys were having counts of 4,000. And this was extrapolated over years when they were in hospital for so long and with so much pain that it would take 2 minutes for them to just roll over in bed because they're in so much pain. Yeah, and it's estimated that between 5,000 and 10,000 people were stricken, and because it was spread across all 50 states, it took about 6 years before the disease was even able to be identified. Yeah, that's the type of disaster that we're going to head towards if we leave it as unregulated as it is in the GE bill currently.
Yeah. So if you had any advice to anyone, let's say you're new to this subject, that book looks like a great place to bloody start.
Altered Genes, Twisted Truth is written by a lawyer called Stephen M. Drucker. It was published, I think, in 2017. Records the entire industry of the genetic engineering and GMO industry. It's a great resource to kind of look into what we may be heading into, because history, historians say, history doesn't repeat itself. It's just similar patterns that happen along the way. But it kind of does repeat itself. If you want to be honest about things, whatever accidents come along, and human nature is bound to make the same mistake again and again.
Was it the saying is history doesn't repeat, it rhymes? I think. I'm also reminded that that exact point there, this bill in some form had already tried to come to New Zealand. And you guys have been born? When were you born? Are you really?
2002.
Oh, wow. So we've already been here. I feel like I just wish there was a lot more people that was, I guess, around then. Like, where are those people now? You know,
Retirement age.
Dead, maybe. I don't know.
Some of them.
But yeah, would you have any advice for anyone that's new to the subject, like where to start, or anything that you've found really informative or helpful for all of your learnings?
I'd say that we shouldn't allow the drive of a few scientists who are driven mostly by ego and the ability to expand their grants and research study pools of money. We shouldn't allow them to dictate the decision of future policy of the country because they want to research and expand their scientific realm. If you look at the impact of what can happen in terms of the dangers versus the economic outcomes that can come from it, there's a massive imbalance of the benefits and the cons. So the precautionary principle I brought up earlier, if you looked at what's the worst thing that can happen if GMOs and GE comes in with this unregulated bill, the worst thing that comes from it is a lot of farmers aren't able to own their farms anymore and they start to become owned by corporations. And there's so much lawfare against farmers that because the scale of our farms is just so small. I mean, like our economy is the size of Denver. Bayer has a pocket big enough to engulf our entire country and our farming economy. Like the danger is there, and by the seams of it, I mean, if you're being intellectually honest with yourself, it seems like we have economic warfare against us at the moment because they're paying $10,000 for that letter to the editor we brought up earlier. And the thing is that if they're just paying $10,000 for that, it gets into the media. It gives a false impression of safety for the public on this technology. It increases public confidence. Public doesn't do research. And then the politicians are also being talked to by these guys who probably won't even cost them a cent. It's just a few emails to make bookings with MPs. It's like there's so much brought up against us for the little price of maybe $10,000 to $100,000 of investment and lobbying that they're going to make millions, if not billions, on us. And the outcomes against us, they will be negatively affecting us, which the taxpayer will be having to pay, or farmers will be having to pay, or even paying with our health.
Yeah,
is just
well said, mate.
The health industry alone, and the health industry in New Zealand alone, and our medical bill will go up just dramatically within 12 years. Yeah, it won't be worth it looking at the cost that'll happen to our health, I think.
Yeah, and I think just going back to what you said about like the scalability of that business model with GMOs, it kind of largely, well, if you look overseas, it goes towards monoculture, big monocultures,
Yeah.
big companies like Bayer or Monsanto are buying out massive farms and pushing small farms out of the way or contaminating those farms and saying, hey, you got my IP in there, you owe me money. It's crazy that we even get to that state. I hope New Zealand does the right thing. I hope New Zealanders wake up and do the right thing.
Yeah. Like the thing is like a lot of New Zealanders, we are very relaxed and we're famous for being kind, adoptive people. Yeah. And I think this is one of the situations where that crux is going to trip us up. Like that is ignorance and bliss in this situation is only going to bring about pain. You know? Yeah. I mean, the whole wake up side of things sounds cringy to our generation sometimes, but it's serious, man.
When you say wake up to your generation, what do you mean? Just kind of like waking up to the real world. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's some of it, I guess, if you want to put it like that. I mean, what is waking up, right? I mean, it's just becoming aware of stuff that's going on. And I mean, if you'd rather be distracted because it's bad on your mental health to be aware of the stuff going on around us, it's like you have every incentive to not look into what's going on because it's going to impact your mental health. And that's the highest priority for a lot of our generation.
Yeah. Do you feel like the media have gave this a fair hearing? Do you feel?
No.
Have what, sir?
The media have given this a fair hearing. Like the media,
no way.
They're there to inform the public on such issues, and they're meant to be a balanced voice. I know there was that we talked about earlier, that Kushla Norman one, but it was only like 6 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like coming away from that as like putting yourself in a position where you know nothing about GE, that would have convinced me that GE is safe and good and beneficial to our country. So yeah, it definitely was not balanced, despite them having Jack Hyman's perspective in there. Yeah, it was not balanced.
Oh, you guys got to interview Jack, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did that go? What sorts of things did you learn?
Well, I mainly learned about the
Patent?
the utility patents. Learned a bit about. We asked quite a few good questions. I'll give you the recording
I'd be
of
keen
it.
to watch that, man. I had a good chat with him today. He's so important right now as well.
I mean, he's the only genetic engineer in New Zealand that's willing to put his voice out against the GE bill. Even he was like, look, not everything in the GE bill is bad. I mean, it's common sense. You know, the diagnostic tools that we were talking about earlier, that's useful. Thing is not going to cause a massive environmental impact type of situation. It's just like identifying what genes are in certain seeds or plants or something. But deregulation without having to have these things in a controlled environment, which is going to bring about a guaranteed impact, negative impact on our environment. And especially when we have endemic species which rely completely on endemic plants here, if those things are cross-pollinated and cross-contaminated with seeds, which are going to just force them to change, and then it creates a chemical which might kill the tui or the, kakahu, the kiwi, and everything else. It's like, well, you say goodbye to all of our native species, really.
Yeah. And sideline, but just had the thought because I was reading up about genetic engineering of microbes. And I find that absolutely terrifying that they would even consider messing around with microbes in soils.
We don't even know about what's in about, I think it's 65 to 70% of our soil. And one cubic centimetre, if you take like 1 cubic centimetre of soil, we don't know 70% of the organisms that are in there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We only know like less than 10% of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like we
It's
know
very
nothing.
small.
Like we could find way more solutions in the soil than we could with GMOs. And it's just like learning how to help certain microbes and stuff grow in the natural environment.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like with the argument around GE being a solution for the drought parts of the country, like North Canterbury, you know, I was in North Canterbury for a lot of my life. There is a very dry season up there. Some of that could be handled and changed if you just reforest a lot of that, because that just brings in moisture into the environment.
Turn the water back to the wetland.
Yeah, return the water back to the wetlands. I mean, might be good for Christchurch with all the skyscrapers we're planning. You know, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys, you want to mention?
I just have something to add.
Go for it.
Because I didn't answer the question before of like, what would you recommend of where people could start? I would suggest like looking and researching into healthy soil and then looking at GE and comparing like, do we need GE? Because I feel like a lot of the environmental science students I've worked with, they don't have knowledge on our soil biological systems. Therefore, I can see why people would think we need GE, but if you look at the biological systems, you're like, no, we don't need it. And another point is like, so I'm got celiac disease, and mostly celiac disease is caused because of the hybridization of the wheat, or turning it into a dwarf plant that I heard from a podcast. And so if we just by hybridizing the wheat has made so many people gluten free, what could GE do then in terms of like disease or allergies to people? Because that's just a simple hybridization. But GE is so much more.
Yeah.
You
On the topic of allergic reactions, right? Toxicology and ecology are not taught to genetic engineers and students. So you don't learn about allergic reactions as a genetic engineer student. And I mean, it's not something that is in your field of science, because that's in the consumption side of things. As a genetic engineer, you're focused on how do we edit genes and make certain traits come about in the plant. And you're not concerned about the safety. In fact, the safety, I mean, you probably got this from Jack Heinemann, but the science around the safety does not exist in the eyes of a lot of genetic engineers, because that's an ethics issue, not a science issue. Yes. So just remember that when you're listening to these genetic engineers, they don't take into account toxicology, allergic reactions, or anything else that can happen once you're on the consuming end of it. And a lot of the time on that consumption side of things, things can change when you cook it, and you have no idea what the outcomes are going to be when you ingest it.
And I'll also add to that as well, if you're listening to people that have a vested interest in seeing a bill go past or seeing commercial property rights,
take everything with a grain of salt.
Totally.
Big grain of salt.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I just want to say thank you for coming along and sharing.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I think you are representative of a younger generation. It's really important that your voice is heard, because...
Get this book on Audible.
We'll buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, where did I buy it from?
Yeah, where did you get it
eBay.
from? eBay? I'm sure there's plenty of places. Who's the editor? Sorry, who's the writer of that one?
Stephen M. Drucker.
Stephen M. Drucker.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be getting a copy of that because, yeah, it sounds like a bit of me.
Lots of little tabs in there. But yeah, have a look at
But
that.
yeah, thanks, guys. And yeah, anything else before I let you get out of here? No? Yay? That's good.
That's everything I can have on my mind apart from going into like some crazy shit.
Oh no, let's go for the crazy shit. What?
Actually, we had a little conversation before we just started this, and we were talking about what the MP said. Do we have that in this conversation?
What do you mean?
Okay. So there was the letter you sent to the MP.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, me and my sister both emailed our local MP separately. Our local MP replied to her.
Who's your local MP? Sorry.
Am I allowed to say on here?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Vanessa Weebank.
Yeah. And what was the main outcomes you think of the email?
So the main
Well, she didn't say anything about the gene editing side of things, did she?
She was very pro it because it sounds like she's had a lot of pro GE people in her ear. They think and believe that, and this is a national MP, that genetic engineering is more safe than natural breeding because it's more precise.
Do you want me to get the email and you can read off it? Because there's also like a
grab
report.
Yeah. So
And that's an MP.
Yeah, that's an MP who has just been told a bunch of bullshit, in my opinion. After reading that book, it's undeniable that you can immediately tell if someone hasn't looked into the history of the industry and relies on the executive summary of studies rather than looking at the data itself.
These are not scientists, but yeah, they need more balanced scientists on this.
But like this part here about, so she said, the market research conducted by the NZTE does not show that the clean green image is impacted by GE foods, as some think it would. But I feel like that's false.
Yeah, I mean, India and Japan both want to have more organic
And they
product coming from
import
us.
a lot of organic foods from us, and China is currently having a big organic conference right now. So I don't understand where she's coming from.
I guess we can go into the topic of precision fermentation in milk. So China is probably developing so many coal power generators that they've got to have infinite amounts of power to be able to create precision fermentation. And the only way we're going to be able to keep above them in the demand for milk is by having mostly organic farmed milk. The thing is, this precision fermentation has been proposed as a solution because it produces less methane because there is no cows involved. Well, it's going to drain a lot of power. New Zealand won't be able to compete with the scale that China will output, and there's always going to be a demand for milk produced from cows because it's the natural way rather than relying on the GMO, GE kind of way, which is precision fermentation. Yeah, I mean, like, going to the precautionary principle, I just believe that it's best for us to, even if we don't pass the bill this year, just wait 7 years before we can see the side effects that happen overseas in England and Canada and Australia that might be deregulating their products or processes or regulations, just to see exactly, just wait 7 years to see what the health outcomes are, because we're about to deregulate something in the same like 1 or 2 year period where it's going to be at least 4 to 7 years for things to spread and get bad. So I'd say just delay the bill just to see if like the fears are able to be confirmed, and then after that amount of time relook at the GE bill again one more time and then decide, hey, have the effects that we've been fearing come about in other countries? Is the data out there to show that it's safe?
I want to go back to that methane thing, right? Because there's this whole like bovia, which is that's to reduce methane, eh?
Bovia is the chemical that you'll find in red seaweed called Asparagopsis taxiformis, which is, if it's only 2% of the cow's diet, it reduces their methane output by 99.99%. And so I don't remember the name of the chemical, I think it's bovine. It basically is the specific chemical that was broken down and found in the seaweed that prevents the methane production in the cow's stomach. And isolating that chemical and putting it into their food is going to be probably more toxic to handle and toxic for the cows to ingest than just having it as a seaweed. Because, I mean, cows along coastal regions are actually, and goats as well, take seaweed and just eat it. It's not bad as a seaweed as its raw product, but taking that chemical and isolating it can create effects that we probably wouldn't want down the line.
The unintended consequences.
Yeah. So that can be done just with normal seaweed. That doesn't need to be messed around with as such.
Asparagus taxiformis. It's a type of red seaweed. It can grow, I think, in very cold climates.
Kelp as well?
Kelp is good for reducing or pulling carbon out of the air and then neutralizing the water acidity. I'm not sure if kelp itself is good at reducing methane production in cow stomachs though.
And I feel like also back to that seaweed thing, like if you take out that particular bovine, is that what you said? If you take that out and have it by itself, without the seaweed, like there's different like nutrients and stuff that work with that certain whatever that chemical is, usually boviate.
Yeah.
To like help digest the chemical, like for example in human nutrition, if you have like iron and vitamin C together, that helps easily absorb the iron. Or if you have like iron and zinc together, you'll take up the iron, not the zinc. They're both digested in your small intestine. So therefore there's consequences if you have that seaweed. It might not actually reduce methane production because you don't have all the other nutrients or whatever with it. I don't know if that's been studied, but that's just a hypothesis we just came up with just then.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the fluoride is the thing as well. It's like there's a lot of people on TV who dentists who come along and say fluoride is good for your teeth, and if you put it onto there, yeah, it could be good. But the thing is, if you ingest it, well, then that's where it creates the health problems. It's when you ingest large amounts of fluoride that you get the negative health outcomes that people worry about. And I mean, justifying putting fluoride into the water because a few people don't, look after their teeth properly, it seems a bit of a drain on us. I mean, if you don't know much about fluoride and what it can do to you, just watch the movie Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, I've not seen that. I'm gonna have
Dark
to watch
Waters, man, is about Teflon and
Wait, they talk about fluoride in that?
yeah, it's Teflon.
Is it was it a New Zealand one or what?
No, it's an American movie. It's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. It's worth the watch, and it talks about PFAS and
No, it was PFOA.
PFOA, and basically how the guys that make fluoride, it's a petrochemical waste product which was found originally to be useful for tanks to make them waterproof and make the tracks on the tanks more grippy in wartime. And so they brought it into their home, creating non-stick pans and frying pans and stuff like that. Well, when you start to erase it, so that's why a lot of people say don't use metal spoons and stuff on the non-stick pans, because it gets a lot of that fluoride into your system, which can create deformities in fetuses and lower IQ and
It's an endocrine disruptor.
yeah, endocrine disruptor, and it can generate cancers as well.
Endocrine is in hormones. We've got a lot of confused people these days.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of the confusion and identity and stuff might just be down to the amount of chemicals in our environment that are messing with our hormones and messing with how we think.
Okay, cool. We'll probably wrap it up there, guys. But yeah, thanks once again.